violently protesting undermines the morality that you say your cause is built upon. It's also dangerous. It's dangerous it's dangerous and it's stupid. It's 12-piece bucket of stupid. Because when you protest violently, when you interfere with a cop or an ICE officer, it's not going to end well. It's not. Under the best of circumstances, these officers are trying to enforce federal law. And the people with respect to whom they're trying to enforce federal law are in most cases.
Okay, did you just hear that? Because I need you to stay right here with me. What you just watched is one of the most refreshingly honest pieces of political speech I have heard in a long time, and we are about to break it all down. Welcome. You picked a great day to show up. And if you've been rocking with this channel for a while, you already know we don't do spin here. We call it like we see it. What I just saw was Senator John Kennedy standing up and saying 3 things that most politicians are too scared or too career conscious to say out loud. No dodging. No double talk. Just plain straight speech. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to think out loud with you. And when we come back after the full video, I'm going to give you my complete, unfiltered reaction point by point. So if you're tired of political theater and people tiptoeing around the hard stuff, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and do not go anywhere. The full video is next.
Now let me say a word about Minneapolis. There's a lot we know. There's a lot we don't know. I want to talk about 3 things we do know. Number 1, the loss of life in Minneapolis was a tragedy. And if you can't admit that, you have a padlock on your heart. It was a tragedy. We don't have all the facts. I know everyone's seen the videos. But the people involved haven't been interviewed. There are a lot of facts we have, but a lot of facts we don't have. And I am not going to rush to judge. I'm not going to rush to judge. President Trump has promised a full and thorough and transparent investigation. And I thank him for that. But regardless of what we find out, we all have to concede, we all should concede that the loss of life in Minneapolis was a tragedy. And I'm sorry it happened. Number 2, this is the second thing that I know. You don't have to be Einstein's cousin. You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to know that illegal immigration is illegal. Duh. It's illegal. And those of us who believe that no one is above the law, we all say we believe that. I believe it. No one, those of us who say that no one is above the law have to concede that people in our country illegally are not above the law either. The law applies to them as well. Our immigration statutes are not second-tier laws. They matter just as much as the other statutes that have been passed by the elected members of Congress. And just like the other laws, the immigration laws have consequences and should have consequences if you violate them. Now, so I guess what I'm saying, Mr. President, is I support enforcement of our immigration laws. Now, how you enforce those laws, how you enforce those laws matters. those laws, like all laws, have to be enforced in accordance with due process. Those immigration statutes, like all laws, have to be enforced in accordance with equal protection. Those laws have to be enforced in accordance with a well-known Supreme Court case, 1968, called Terry v. Ohio, which sets forth the standards. Reasonable suspicion is the standard chosen by the Supreme Court, by which someone can be stopped and questioned when a law enforcement official doesn't have probable cause. Terry v. Ohio has to be followed. So, number one, illegal immigration is illegal. We should enforce our immigration laws, but how we enforce them matters. Third and final point. You have the right to protest in America. Let me say that again. You have the right to protest in America. You do not have the right to protest violently. And in fact, violence, as you protest, undermines the morality of the thing that you're protesting over. Let me say that again. Violence, if you choose violence when you protest, that undermines the morality of the movement that you say your movement is based upon. You know who else understood that? Dr. King. King understood it. Gandhi understood it. Mandela understood it. Violently protesting, not protesting, but violently protesting undermines the morality that you say your cause is built upon. It's also dangerous. It's dangerous it's dangerous and it's stupid. It's 12-piece bucket of stupid. Because when you protest violently, when you interfere with a cop or an ICE officer, it's not going to end well. It's not. Under the best of circumstances, these officers are trying to enforce federal law. And the people with respect to whom they're trying to enforce federal law are, in most cases, I'm not going to say all cases, but in most cases are criminals. Not criminals because they're here illegally, though that too is a violation of our law, but criminals because they have violated other laws, in many cases felonies. And those ICE officials, those cops are scared. They're scared. They're dealing with someone who could be armed, someone who could be dangerous. So you've got a powder keg. And when protesters choose to protest violently and harass those ICE officials and blow whistles in their ears and block their way and spit in their faces and curse them and curse their children, they're giving off sparks in a powder keg. And it's not going to end well in many cases. And the truth of the matter is, it's been my experience in life, most, I'm not going to say all, most cops will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. So, as we go forward in America and try to enforce our laws in conformity with the United States Constitution, as we go forward together in America, and while we're respecting people's constitutional rights, we respect our law enforcement officials who are doing a very difficult job. As we go forward in America today, as the President has promised, to have a full and fair and transparent investigation of the tragic loss of life in Minneapolis, I hope we can keep those three things that I think all of us can agree upon in mind. I'm sorry we're at this point, but I believe that our future can be better than our present, and certainly than our past. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor to my esteemed colleague.
All right, we just watched the whole thing. And the first thing I want to say is that man came in with a structure. 3 points. Clear and hard to argue with. Most politicians walk up to a microphone and give you 10 minutes of nothing. Not Kennedy. On the Minneapolis tragedy, I thought his opening was strong and genuinely human. He said plainly that the loss of life was a tragedy and that if you can't admit that, you have a padlock on your heart. And what I appreciated was that he didn't try to score points off of it. He called it what it was and moved on. He also acknowledged we don't have all the facts yet. In a media environment where everyone rushes to a verdict the second a video drops, that kind of restraint is actually a sign of intellectual honesty. On illegal immigration, this is where Kennedy really earns it, because he doesn't come in with anger or fear. He comes in with logic. He says if you believe no one is above the law, then that principle has to apply consistently. You cannot say the law matters and then carve out exceptions based on who you feel sympathetic toward. That's not justice. That's just feelings dressed up as justice. And he's right. Immigration laws are federal law, passed by elected members of Congress. They are not optional. But Kennedy doesn't stop there. He's quick to say that how you enforce the law matters too. He brings up due process, equal protection, and Terry versus Ohio. This is not a call for cruelty. It's a call for lawful, constitutional enforcement. There's a real difference between those two things. On the right to protest, he affirms it fully and without hesitation. You have the right to protest in America, full stop. But then he draws the line at violence. And here is what I think is the most important point of the entire speech. When you choose violence as your method of protest, you are undermining the moral foundation of your own cause. You're not helping the movement. You're hurting it. He names King, Gandhi, and Mandela, 3 of the most effective agents of change in modern history. And what did they all have in common? They understood that moral authority is your most powerful weapon and that violence throws it away. He also makes a practical point that doesn't get said enough. Interfering with law enforcement in a volatile situation is not brave, it is dangerous. These are officers dealing with high-pressure circumstances and armed individuals. When you add protesters who are blocking, spitting, and cursing into that mix, you are creating the conditions for something terrible to happen. So where do I land? I think Kennedy walked in there and delivered something rare, which is moral consistency. He didn't pick a side based on tribe or politics. Tragedy is tragedy. Law is law. Rights are rights. And violence is never the answer. You might disagree with him on policy, and that is completely fair. But the framework he laid out is hard to argue with. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you agree with his 3 points, or is there one you push back on? Let's have that conversation. And if you got something out of this reaction, share the video. I'll see you in the next one. You said spot and pick 10 heated or controversial moments in the video and give me a controversial clickbait title suggestions each for this video. Make them savage and